The universe is composed of energy, and although you may not be aware of it, you have the power to control it. Your brain processes countless signals every second. The feel of your clothes, background sounds, subtle changes in light. These go unnoticed because your brain filters them out to help you focus. However, this filtering can also limit you. Recall the last time you learned something new. Initially, it felt challenging, but with practice, it became easier. This is because your brain rewires itself, forming new connections. This is where energy control comes in. Many believe they need more energy, but it's often about utilizing existing energy more effectively. You can achieve this by breaking down the barriers between your conscious and unconscious mind. This unlocks hidden abilities and is based on neuroscience and cognitive psychology. Try closing your eyes and focusing on your breath. Observe each inhale and exhale without trying to change it. Soon, your breathing will shift naturally as your brain releases unnecessary control. This applies everywhere. Our minds create invisible rules that we can learn to modify. As we mature, we tend to overthink, forcing outcomes instead of allowing them to unfold naturally. This can hinder us from reaching our full potential. Energy control involves identifying these patterns and working with them, not against them. You'll discover how your brain constructs reality and how to modify that perception. It's not about seeing what's not there, but noticing what has always been there. The techniques are simple, requiring no special tools or years of training. Think of your mind as a camera lens. It's currently in auto mode, with your brain deciding the focus. Energy control teaches you to switch to manual, granting you more control. This may seem abstract, but the results are real. Athletes, musicians, and business leaders use these techniques to enhance performance and decision-making. The key is to start small and build gradually. You can't master mental processes instantly, but with the right approach, you can make steady progress. We'll break down how to do this step by step, helping you see through illusions and access deeper awareness. Our subconscious shapes our perception of the world. Your brain filters out most information, like the feel of your clothes or background sounds. This filtering system was crucial for our ancestors' survival, and we still use it today. Try closing your eyes for a few seconds. What do you hear? Most people notice sounds they previously ignored. Your brain always perceived these sounds, but didn't bring them to your attention until you focused on them. This selective attention is like a spotlight, highlighting specific senses. Your beliefs and experiences influence your perception. If you fear snakes, you'll notice snake-like shapes faster than someone who doesn't. Your brain creates shortcuts based on your learned experiences. These shortcuts can be deceptive. For instance, a banana under blue light still appears yellow because your brain knows bananas are yellow. This happens constantly without your awareness. However, you can train your brain to notice more. Athletes practice until they can spot minute movements in their opponents. Musicians learn to hear subtle sound differences. Poker players master reading micro-expressions. Your brain improves at noticing what you train it to notice, regardless of the skill. What you focus on, you empower. Think about learning to drive. Initially, everything required conscious attention. Now you do most of it automatically. The same applies to energy work. At first, sensing subtle energy movements might be difficult, but with practice, it becomes easier. Your brain learns new patterns. You can use this by practicing focused attention, teaching your brain to notice energy patterns it used to filter out. Try focusing on your hands. After a few seconds, you might notice tingling or warmth. These sensations were always there. You just weren't attuned to them. Your brain constructs your reality based on a small fraction of available information. By understanding this process, you can expand your perception. This isn't about seeing things that aren't there, but noticing what's already present. The matrix of perception isn't fixed. It changes based on your learning and practice. Every time you work with energy, you train your brain to notice new patterns. This makes energy work more intuitive. It's like learning a new language. At first, you hear unfamiliar sounds, but with practice, you start understanding words and sentences. The same applies to energy work. The sensations you learn to feel aren't new. They're part of your normal sensory input. What changes is how your brain processes this information. Understanding how your brain filters information allows you to work with this system, not against it. As you progress, remember that everything you learn becomes part of your perception matrix. Each new technique helps your brain create better shortcuts for working with energy. The matrix of perception is the foundation for all energy work. By working with it, you make learning easier and results more consistent. Now, let's explore how these patterns connect to quantum reality. The quantum world defies the rules of our daily lives. Things can exist in multiple places simultaneously. Particles can connect across vast distances instantly, and observation alters what we observe. These aren't just strange ideas, they're how reality functions at its most fundamental level. Imagine a spinning coin. In our world, it lands on either heads or tails, but quantum particles can be like a coin that's both heads and tails simultaneously until we measure it. This isn't just a theory. We utilize quantum mechanics in many technologies. Your phone's processor, GPS satellites, and even photosynthesis rely on quantum effects. One of the most fascinating aspects of quantum physics is entanglement, where two particles are linked so that affecting one instantly affects the other, regardless of distance. The quantum world isn't limited to tiny particles. Its effects manifest in larger objects too. Scientists have placed tiny mirrors, metal pieces, and even bacteria into superposition, blurring the line between the quantum world and our everyday world. The quantum world also challenges our understanding of reality. If a particle can be in two places at once until observed, what does that say about existence? Some scientists believe quantum mechanics might explain consciousness. While this is still debated, it shows how quantum physics could be connected to every aspect of our lives. The math behind quantum mechanics is sound, but its interpretation is still debated. Some propose parallel universes, while others believe consciousness creates reality through observation. Quantum technology is transforming our world. Quantum computers can solve problems faster than regular computers. Quantum cryptography offers unbreakable codes. Quantum sensors can detect minute changes in gravity, magnetic fields, and time. The quantum world also reveals the interconnectedness of everything. Empty space isn't truly empty, it's filled with virtual particles. Everything affects everything else. This connects back to our perception of reality. Our brains process information, but quantum physics suggests observation contributes to creating the reality we perceive. Looking at quantum physics changes how we think about cause and effect. In the quantum world, effects can precede causes, and time becomes more flexible. These ideas might seem strange, but they're supported by countless experiments. The quantum world is the real world. We just don't usually notice it because we're too big. Scientists continue to discover new quantum effects and applications. The quantum world isn't just about physics. It's becoming part of engineering, biology, and computing. The quantum world shows us that reality is more interesting than we imagined. It's not just about tiny particles, it's about the fundamental nature of everything. Understanding quantum physics helps us appreciate the wonder and mystery of our universe. This leads us to our next topic, how observation changes what we're looking at. The quantum world has shown us that we can't separate the observer from the observed. This observer effect is key to understanding both quantum physics and our experience of reality. The act of observation changes what we see. This simple truth is central to quantum physics and has deep implications for how we work with energy. Imagine a child playing alone. They act naturally, without concern. But as soon as they notice someone watching, their behavior changes. This same principle applies to the tiniest parts of our universe. When scientists try to measure a quantum particle, the act of measurement affects its state. This has implications for energy work. When you focus your attention on energy, you're not just passively watching, you're participating in how it moves and changes. Your observation creates a connection between you and what you're observing. But this isn't bad news. It's actually a tool we can use. By knowing that our attention affects energy, we can be more precise in our practice. If you want to sense energy in your hands, the moment you focus on that sensation, you're already starting to create it. This raises an interesting question. If observation changes what we're looking at, how do we know what's real? The answer might surprise you. Everything we observe is real, just changed by our observation. It's like a dance where both partners affect each other's movements. Think about watching a sunset. The colors you see, the feelings it evokes, these come from both the sunset itself and how you're experiencing it. For energy work, this means being aware of how your attention shapes your experience. If you're looking for peaceful energy, your observation helps create that peace. But there's more to it than just watching. The observer effect teaches us about responsibility in our practice. Since our attention affects what we observe, we need to be clear about our intentions. What we focus on grows stronger. This doesn't mean we're making things up. Instead, we're participating in reality rather than just watching it. When you work with energy, you're both the observer and part of what's being observed. It's like being both the photographer and part of the photograph. When you sense energy, notice how your expectations influence what you feel. Are you looking for warmth, tingling, movement? Your expectations help shape your experience. The observer effect shows us that there's no such thing as purely objective observation. Everything we do, everything we notice, includes our own influence. This might seem strange at first. How can you trust what you're experiencing if you're partly creating it? The answer is simple. What matters is the result, not whether it fits some idea of pure observation. If your practice helps you grow and heal, it's working. Think of it like learning to ride a bike. At first, you might worry about doing it right. But once you're moving, what matters is that you're staying up and going where you want to go. The observer effect teaches us to be honest about our role in what we experience. We're not passive watchers, but active participants. This awareness makes our practice more effective. As we move forward, keep in mind that your attention is a tool. Like any tool, it works better when you know how it affects what you're working with. Your observation creates change. Use this knowledge to guide your practice and strengthen your results. This understanding leads us to our next topic: how to break through old patterns and create new possibilities. The way we typically view energy is often inaccurate. We tend to think of energy as something that just happens, like electricity flowing through wires or heat rising from a stove. But these are just surface effects of something much deeper. Think about what happens when you turn on a light switch. We say electricity flows from the power plant to your home, making the bulb glow. This explanation seems right, but it's an illusion. The truth is more surprising. Energy doesn't flow anywhere, it's already everywhere, all the time. What we call energy transfer is actually a chain reaction of energy states changing from one form to another. The power plant doesn't send energy to your home, it creates a disturbance in the energy field that already exists everywhere. This might seem like a minor distinction, but the difference is huge. Once you stop thinking about energy as something that moves from place to place, you start seeing the bigger picture. Everything around us is made of energy in different states. Matter itself is just energy in a very dense, stable form. Let's look at heat. We say heat rises, but heat isn't a thing that moves up. It's energy spreading out to reach balance. When you put your hand near a hot object, You're not feeling heat traveling to your skin. You're feeling your own energy state changing in response to the energy state of the air molecules around you. The same applies to every form of energy we know. Sound isn't a thing moving through air. It's a pattern of pressure changes in the energy that's already there. Light isn't something streaming from the sun. It's a ripple in the electromagnetic field that fills all space. Electricity works the same way. It's not electrons traveling down a wire, but a wave of energy transferring through the field around the wire. Even gravity isn't a force pulling objects together. It's the curvature of space-time causing energy to seek balance. Think about water flowing downhill. It's not the water itself driving the movement. It's the energy difference between higher and lower ground. Everywhere you look, energy is shifting, spreading, and transforming. Not as something separate, but as the very fabric of existence, shaping itself in infinite ways. This new way of seeing energy changes everything about how we can work with it. Instead of trying to push energy around, we can focus on changing energy states in useful ways. It's like the difference between trying to move water by carrying it in buckets versus opening and closing dams to direct the flow of a river. The observer effect we discussed earlier starts making more sense too. We're not separate observers watching energy do things. We're part of the same energy field, interacting with it through our observations. Every measurement we make, every interaction we have, is really just one part of the energy field affecting another part. This isn't just theory. It has real practical applications. Solar panels work better when we design them based on energy state changes rather than trying to capture sunlight. Batteries last longer when we build them to maintain stable energy states instead of thinking about storing and releasing charge. Even simple machines work more efficiently when we stop fighting against energy's natural patterns and start working with them. Breaking free of the old way of thinking about energy takes practice. We're so used to the illusion that it feels more real than reality. But once you start seeing energy as it truly is, as a single field that everything is part of, you can't go back to the old view. The next time you see any kind of energy in action, try to look past what your eyes tell you is happening. Don't see things moving or flowing. See energy states changing in a connected field. Don't think about separate objects interacting. Think about different parts of the same system affecting each other. This shift in perspective opens up new possibilities for how we can use energy. Instead of fighting against what we think are the limits of energy transfer, we can work with the natural patterns of energy state changes. We can stop wasting effort trying to move energy around and focus on creating the right conditions for useful energy state changes to happen on their own. The illusion of separate energies moving between separate objects has held us back for too long. By breaking free of it, we can start working with energy as it really is. A single, interconnected field that we're all part of. This isn't just a different way of thinking about energy. It's the key to using it more effectively than ever before. Your brain is like plastic. It can change and grow. Scientists call this neuroplasticity. Every time you try something new, you create new pathways in your mind. These paths can replace the old routes that led to limitations in your energy field. Think of your comfort zone as a starting point, not a prison cell. Each step outside makes the zone bigger. The walls start to fade. What seemed impossible becomes possible. But watch out for the sneaky ways your mind tries to rebuild those walls. It might say that was just luck when you succeed, or this is too hard when facing challenges. These thoughts are just echoes of the old prison. Look at children playing. They become pirates, astronauts, doctors, and dancers without doubting themselves. They haven't learned to limit their possibilities yet. That freedom still exists in you. It's just hidden behind walls of doubt. Your senses filter reality based on what you expect to see. If you believe something's impossible, Your brain might miss opportunities right in front of you. It's like wearing sunglasses indoors and wondering why everything looks dark. Breaking free takes practice. Start noticing your automatic no responses. Question them. Ask yourself, is this true, or is it just what I'm used to believing? The walls of your perception prison weren't built in a day, and they won't come down in a day either. But every time you question a limitation, try something new, or push past your comfort zone, you weaken those walls. Your true limits are far beyond what your mind tells you. Think of someone who inspired you by doing something impossible. They faced the same mental walls, but chose to push through them. The prison guards are your own thoughts. They patrol the walls with weapons of doubt, fear, and old habits. But you hold the key to the cell. You can choose different thoughts, take different actions, and write a new story. This isn't about positive thinking. It's about accurate thinking. See things as they are, not as your fears paint them. Notice the opportunities your mind might be filtering out. Your perception of prison might feel solid, but it's made of paper-thin thoughts. You can tear through them with questions, curiosity, and small, brave actions. Each step makes you stronger. Each wall you break shows you what's possible. The world outside your perception prison is bigger than you imagine. It's filled with possibilities your mind might have hidden from view. The door is unlocked. The walls are ready to fall. You just need to take that first step. The quantum mirror shows us something strange about how energy works. Think of a mirror in your bathroom. When you look at it, you see yourself looking back. But what if that mirror could show you all the different ways energy moves and changes? Let's say you're standing in front of this special mirror. Instead of seeing just one reflection, you see countless versions of the same scene, each showing energy moving in slightly different ways. In one reflection, heat rises from your body in red waves. In another, electrical signals pulse through your nerves in blue sparks. In yet another, the atoms in your cells vibrate and dance. This mirror doesn't just show us what's happening now, it shows us what could happen next. Like ripples in a pond, each tiny change in energy creates new patterns and possibilities. When you move your hand, the mirror shows hundreds of possible paths that energy might take. But here's the weird part. The mirror doesn't just show us these things, it actually affects them too. Just by looking into the mirror, we change how energy moves. Scientists discovered this out when studying tiny particles. The act of watching them changed how they acted. Think about throwing a ball. Usually, you can predict where it will go based on how hard you throw it. But in the quantum world of very tiny things, it's different. The ball could end up in many places at once, and looking at it forces it to pick just one spot. The quantum mirror teaches us that we're not just watching energy, we're part of its dance. Every time we measure something, observe something, or try to control energy, we change it. It's like trying to catch smoke with your hands. The very act of reaching for it changes its shape. This might sound confusing, but it helps explain why some of our attempts to control energy don't work out like we expect. We can't just stand outside and pull strings like a puppet master. We're always in the mirror too, part of the same energy system we're trying to control. Some people who work with energy have started using this idea. Instead of fighting against this strange effect, they work with it. They know that sometimes the best way to direct energy is to step back and let it find its natural path, like water flowing downhill. The mirror also shows us something about time. In its reflections, we can see that energy doesn't just move forward like an arrow, it spreads out in all directions at once, creating webs of connection. Past and future blur together in patterns that look more like a dance than a straight line. This changes how we think about controlling energy. Instead of trying to force it into the shape we want, we can learn to read these patterns. We can spot the places where small changes might create big effects. like finding the right spot to tap a crystal glass to make it sing. But the mirror has one more lesson for us. Sometimes when we look into it expecting to see chaos and confusion, we find surprising order instead. The same patterns keep showing up, like fractals in nature. The way tree branches look like smaller versions of the whole tree, or how clouds form similar shapes at different sizes. These patterns tell us that even when energy seems random and unpredictable, there might be hidden rules guiding it. Not strict rules like traffic laws, but more like the rules that make birds fly in formation or waves break on a beach. The quantum mirror isn't really a mirror you can buy or build. It's a way of seeing how we connect with energy. Every time we try to measure, control, or change energy, we're looking into this mirror. And what we see looking back isn't just energy. It's ourselves, connected to everything else through countless threads of cause and effect. This view changes everything about how we work with energy. We stop thinking about energy as something separate that we need to control. Instead, we start seeing ourselves as part of energy's flow. Like a leaf in a river, we can guide our movement, but we're still part of the current. The next time you work with energy, imagine looking into the quantum mirror. See all the possibilities spreading out from each moment. Notice how your attention changes what you're watching. And remember that you're not just watching the dance of energy, you're dancing too. The act of watching changes what we see. This simple truth lies at the heart of quantum physics, but it also shapes our daily lives in ways we rarely notice. Think of a child playing alone. They move freely, dance without care, talk to themselves. Now, watch them openly. Their behavior shifts, they become more self-conscious, perhaps showing off or hiding away. This same principle works inside our minds. When we pay attention to our thoughts and feelings, they transform. A headache feels different once we focus on it. Our breathing pattern changes as soon as we notice it. Our walking style adjusts when we think about how we're moving. Scientists discovered this effect while studying tiny particles. They found that measuring a particle's position affected its speed, and measuring its speed changed its position. You couldn't know both at once. The very tools used to observe changed what was being observed. But this isn't just about physics. It's about how we experience life. When you're caught up in anger, you're inside the emotion. The moment you step back and notice, I am feeling angry, something shifts. The anger doesn't vanish, but your relationship to it changes. You're no longer completely identified with it. This creates a fascinating opportunity. By becoming aware of our patterns, how we react, think, and feel, we can introduce a gap between stimulus and response. In that gap lies our freedom to choose differently. Consider what happens when you catch yourself starting to worry. Usually, worry thoughts chain together automatically. One fear leads to another and another. But if you can spot the pattern starting, you can pause it. The simple act of noticing breaks the spell. The same goes for physical tension. Most of us walk around with tight shoulders or a clenched jaw without realizing it. The moment we become aware, we can let go. The observation itself becomes the solution. But there's a catch. We can't observe everything at once. Like those quantum particles, some aspects of our experience become clearer, while others grow fuzzy. That's okay. We can shift our attention as needed, like adjusting the focus on a camera. This brings us to a practical question. What should we observe? The answer depends on what we want to change or understand. If we're trying to break a habit, we might watch for its triggers. If we're learning a skill, we might track our practice patterns. If we're building relationships, we might notice our communication styles. The key is to observe without judging, like a scientist collecting data. We want to see what's actually happening, not what we think should be happening. This neutral awareness is what allows natural change to occur. Sometimes the changes are subtle, a slight shift in posture, a small pause before speaking, a gentle relaxation of tension. Other times they're dramatic, a complete change in behavior or perspective. Either way, they start with observation. This brings us back to where we started. The simple act of watching changes what we see. But now we can use this knowledge. We can be more strategic about what we pay attention to and how we observe it. We can use our awareness as a tool for growth and change. The observer effect isn't just a quirk of quantum physics or a psychological curiosity. It's a practical tool we can use every day. By choosing what we observe and how we observe it, we can work with this principle rather than being unconsciously affected by it. Next time you want to change something in your life, start by watching it carefully. Don't try to force change, just observe with curiosity and patience. Let the power of attention do its work. After all, in the dance between observer and observed, both are always changing.